Jason, when somebody actually texts off a yard sign, you're telling me that you have a number of automations that comes back to them in terms of like videos and things of that nature?
Yeah, we're using a system called Call Action. And so basically when somebody will reach out to me off of the yard signs, we have like a text campaign that's going to automatically go out. We're going to send them information and pictures on the property. Also, if we have video marketing or any 3D tours, we're going to include that in the text campaign as well.
That's awesome. So not only do they get an automatic, I'm imagining text response with information about the property, whether it be like an info sheet, pictures, if you have a video, that'll automatically go out as well. And what are you finding, I guess, prior to automating that, what was the process like for you?
Well, before I had the whole call action set up, it's like most agents, you just have like your cell phone number on the yard sign. The only problem that we were running into with that is, somebody calls you off the yard sign, you don't really know where they're calling you from when you see the call come in. And so a lot of the times you would, end up missing the phone call and maybe not calling them back because, you get so many calls, you're not sure where this call came from. And there's times where, the agents won't call the missed calls back. And so, what we would do is have to, screen all the calls. We would have to make sure to reach out to everyone that we missed. And then we would have to manually, send them all the information that they requested. And so now, we have a sign writer that says, text for info, or, we could replace it with, text for 3D tour. And now it's all automatic. So, no running back to the computer to try to remember like who it was you spoke to. I used to run into the problem, like someone would call me when I was driving or something. I'd have a conversation with them, and it's hard to like capture their information when you're like driving or out in the field. And so it was always difficult to kind of like remember all the details. And so now another thing with Call Action is all the calls, the inbound calls are recorded and transcribed. So it's just eliminates so much work that we were doing manually.
It sounds like you have also figured out a way, because you mentioned previously that you're using a third-party application, Call Action, to help automate the phone call. So not only do you have writers that say like, hey, text this information, and this automatic sequence comes in. If people call in, can you talk to a little bit about how you've utilized technology to automate that portion of the business?
So with a company like Call Action and with a technology like this, you can track where every single call is coming from. So it also helps when the phone call comes in, because, sometimes we get a phone call and we're maybe in the middle of something and we're like, oh, I'm gonna have to call this person back. But if you have a lead source that is a very strong lead source, man, when that lead source calls, you're going to go out of your way to answer. So like for me, it's like Yelp and Google calls. Those are usually like, come list me's. They're very ready to go. And so when I get a call from one of those lead sources, like whatever I'm doing, I'm going to make an extra effort to answer it. I could go back to the office. I can, listen to that conversation again. I could read the transcription. And another cool thing about it is when the call comes in is the system is going to try to pull as much public info as it can off of that phone number. So there's times that I get the person's name, I get maybe even their home address, I get, family members. There's a lot of information that's attached to the people's phone numbers.
Before you kind of go, because we're talking about a lot at one time, I want to make sure people can conceptually understand like how this is working. So it's texting automations on yard signs. Mm-hmm. So that way, you're giving them all the information, it'll increase the probability that they'll interact with you in some capacity. The second is automating on those phone calls. So when they come in, not only can you see the source of where they're calling from, but they're also transcribing that conversation, which makes your job easier. So I don't have to figure out, kind of who I talked to and what they were kind of asking about and what property they called about. And then the third form of automation is in both of those interactions with consumers. The system that you set up allows you to capture data and then put that into your CRM, something like Followup Boss. Is that right?
Exactly.
And why is that important, Jason? I think I'm pretty clear on why it's important, but can you share to the audience why that whole sequence is becoming increasingly more important?
Well, the main reason why it's so important to automatically add all inbound calls and all that information to our CRM is because most agents aren't going to get around to doing it. Okay, so they're having conversations on their regular cell phone with their regular cell phone number, which most businesses don't work off of your personal cell, which is it's huge to have like a business line. And so what was happening in the past is you have all these people that call and you never get around to adding them to your database. You got a desk full of little notes that you've written, Post-it notes everywhere. And so being able to automate that process not only helps you save time, but it helps you be more efficient.
I would propose or suggest, Jason, that moving in the future, agents who don't have a system like this set up will not be able to compete because they're not going to be able to provide the service, the speed, the efficiency that consumers are actually that's what their expectation is. Would you agree with that?
Well, look at Amazon, right? Like if I push the button and my package don't show up in 24 hours, I'm furious, right? And like you said, these companies making these consumer expectations, gone are the days, in my opinion, especially now with like ChatGPT, where you don't have the skills in place to act fast, get back to them on a timely basis. Most of the things that we use these days are instant gratification. The number one complaint I usually hear in this industry is, my agent never got back to me. He listed my house. I never heard from him again. They don't have systems in place to provide that type of service. The client's going to get a certain type of service, like even if I forget about them.
I think that's important for agents to begin thinking about because, Naval Ravikant says, if you want to get paid in the future, you need to live in the future. So if in the future,
Nice.
People's expectations are that instant kind of interaction, you give me all the information very quickly, and the system that you've set up in terms of automation allows you to be able to deliver that, then if I want to continue to get my unfair share in the future, I have to do that now. I think every business is accruing debt. And it's either financial debt, management debt, or technical debt. And with what we're talking about, this is like a technical debt thing, meaning like if I don't take the time to figure this stuff out or partner with somebody or learn from somebody like you or, whatever, then what's happened is I'm going to accrue, if I don't learn that skill set, I accrue technical debt in my business, which debt ultimately has to be paid at some point. You have to go back and like figure it out. So what would you say to those agents that are like, oh, because me and you hear that shit all the time. They're like, oh, I'm not really techie. It's not like my thing. Like,
well, I actually say this a lot, and I got it from you. It's you had that analogy that you guys did at your retreat where you have them swim laps and then they put on like fatigues and then they swim laps again. And the point of it was you need to eliminate the drag. So figure out where the drag is, where what's keeping you from, putting these automations in place, and you need to eliminate the drag. So whatever you don't know how to do, you need to hire someone that knows how to do it, or you need to make it a point to learn it. I mean, half of the stuff that I've learned when it comes to like my computer techie stuff, I always make the joke is, I learned it from YouTube University. You could learn anything on YouTube. So you could learn how to do all of this stuff step by step. I was just telling you, I built a server and all this stuff. I didn't know how to do none of that. I didn't go to school for that. I learned it on YouTube.
If you spend 50 hours studying something, you will know more than like 95% of the population on that particular topic. So,
right.
It's like an hour a day.
Would it break down to 18 minutes a day?
Something silly, right? So, yeah, you can either study it or you can get it done for you. And the done for you version is where you kind of pay somebody. And I'm also imagining too, with each one of these, it's like one of these might be a rock, Meaning like, okay, I'm going to set up automations with the texts, and maybe I'm going to take the next 90 days to figure this shit out. So I'm either going to watch YouTube videos, I'm going to reach out to Jason, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get that really plugged in. And then once you do that, then it's like, okay, let's do automations with the calls. All right, cool. How do I need to learn how to do that? And maybe that's your kind of next quarter rock. Like, did you put all this together like that, or was it like over time?
I spent like 2-3 weeks, like just focusing on my Yelp profile and focusing on how to make it better and, making it 100% complete. That's the way I typically am, is when I get something new, it's like, I'm like totally absorbed by it for that month or whatever, or for those few weeks. So it's going to take a while.
Yeah. And I hear from a lot of agents, they're like, well, like I don't really have time to mess with that because they're so focused on, kind of transactions and stuff, which I totally understand. At the same time, I would propose that they can't afford not to, because again, if you want to get paid in the future, you need to live in the future. And this is the setup that is going to be required. So if we are competing with super well funded, like super deep pocket tech companies, the way for us to continue to be able to compete is for us to have similar type system set up for ourselves, right? So versus like, okay, let's say prior to you having the system set up, somebody would call in, you'd be in the car, okay, and then you have to remember who they were and all this other stuff, and so much leakage, so much stuff slips through the cracks. Whereas now, what I want to go back to is you were saying like when these calls come in, they also automatically are put into Followup Boss, your CRM. So there's like, anybody who's reaching out to you is being put into the CRM so that way they can be followed up with. Is that right?
Yeah, every single phone call that I receive automatically goes straight into the CRM, and it goes into like my new leads smart list. and I mean, everybody, I even have like, marketing people, spam. That's unfortunate. They do have some spam blockers they just installed. But every phone call goes straight into my CRM with the name that's attached to their phone number, with their phone number. When I get back to the computer, I just got to go into like my lead bucket, and you can see everyone that has called you recently, and then you go into there. You can also see just at a glance what the conversation was about.
That's dope. I love that. So, but that makes now you're behaving like these big tech companies. Now you have a system to where you're capturing all this data, and then you can go and do lead follow-up or prospect or do what needs to be done. But without this system, it's so wildly inefficient. One of the other things you've done, you've also automated gifting. So talk a little bit about that.
I use a company called Evabot. I've been using them for years. It's really cool. It's basically, as soon as it's done, I set that action plan, and an email goes out to the client asking them to, hey, my name is Eva. I'm Jason's, gifting assistant. Please click this link so that, I can ask you some questions and get your order. One cool thing that I really, really like is like if it's a seller, it automatically gets their forwarding address. The bot is going to ask them a series of questions so that it can customize a gift for them. It wants to know, like, do they like coffee or do they like tea? Do they have any allergies? Do they like alcohol? Do they have a pet? So it's going to ask them all this information, which is another cool thing about it because it's like an intake form. I can export all this information to my CRM, and these are questions that I'm not always asking the client, right? And so it takes all this information that it asked them, and it's going to put together a custom gift. It's going to be in a branded box. And so when the box shows up at their house, on the outside of the box, like Amazon has a big Amazon logo. Well, when my box shows up, it has, our branding, our logo on it. They open up the box and there's a handwritten card. So they also do like the fake computer generated handwritten cards. It's filled with, I don't know what that stuff's called, that stuffing stuff. And it has custom gifts, depending on how much that I've specified. I have a set amount.
It's able to send the customizable gifts based on the survey. And I'm imagining that you're not involved at all in the selection process of what gifts. It's Evabot that's doing it.
All I did was set them a sold action plan, buyer sold. I assigned that action plan, and I just basically can forget about them for about a year.
It asks for referrals and reviews. How does it do that? Just with like text prompts, or what does it do?
It will send it'll send a series of emails. So it's going to send an email like, hey, we hope you had a really, I think it sends it when they get their gift. And it's like, hey, we hope you really liked your gift. Please make sure to, that spiel, reviews are very important to us. Please leave a review. And then if they do leave a review, it sends out another email and it has like links like, thank you so much for your review. Please share it to one of the following sites.
Now, you mentioned that after a year, you could forget about them for a year. So what happens after the year? Do you have to like go in and like do something different, or will that process continue to keep going, or how does that work?
So as soon as the year's up, what I do then is I have an AM cards campaign that takes over. And that's just basically going to send happy home anniversary every year. And it's going to send them a card for their birthday every year. So that's going to happen indefinitely. And, that's only a couple bucks a person. So it doesn't break the bank. And, we have some emails that go out in the call and the Followup Boss action plan. We have a home bot that goes out, and then they're going to be getting multiple monthly emails from MailChimp, from our video newsletter.
And I'm sure I'm hearing some people say like, okay, well, why do you use Followup Boss? Because I use Followup Boss as well. Like, why do you use Followup Boss?
I mean, the first thing is it's easy to use, so they all can understand it. They all can use it. I was using other CRM in the past, and it wasn't very intuitive. So people were having problems trying to figure out how to do stuff. And the number one reason I use Followup Boss is because of the integrations with everything. If you've ever heard me on one of my Zooms, like, if the software doesn't play nice with everybody else, then I'm not going to use it.
But like cumulatively, what do you think all of those third-party platforms cost you to utilize in your business to allow so much automation to be happening?
I probably spend like $2,000 a month on all my different softwares, but I also run a small team, so I don't have just like the individual plans. Like Followup Boss, I'm spending like $500 a month. Call actions, like $300-400 a month. Evabot, depending on how many gifts you send, Evabot's going to run you like $250 a year, plus the cost of
gifts.
The gifts. I mean, they're not super expensive. Zapier runs me $600 a year. And that's like my favorite, Zapier. So $600 a year for something I can't live without.
So, okay. And then do you have any, I know you recommended like YouTube and stuff. Do you have any recommendations where people, I know some of these platforms like Followup Boss, they have like, channels themselves that you can kind of peruse through so you can learn stuff. Do you have any recommendations on what people should be doing to perhaps make themselves educated consumers of these third-party vendors that will allow so much automation?
Like all of these companies have their own private Facebook groups. Followup Boss has multiple private Facebook groups. Call Action has a private Facebook group, and things like lab code agents and stuff like that. And the reason I say that is because learning from like what other people are getting stuck on is what I really love the groups for. Because you'll be having an issue, or, you're just going in there and reading, and you read someone's post and you're like, man, that's the same thing I'm experiencing. So you can really learn a lot from your peers. They have forums. It's like a forum, right?
I think that's really good guidance, man, because I don't think most people would think about Facebook as like the place to go to get information. But to your point, there's like whole communities. I know Followup Boss has like 15,000 people in their community where you could just hop on there and ask any question you want. And like within seconds, somebody's going to respond to you and be like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, or go check this out. So I guess for you with automations and technology, like where do you see yourself, I don't know, 3 years from now? I know you started to integrate ChatGPT into, doing some write-ups and stuff like that. So where do you see kind of tech in your business moving forward? How's it going to help you?
Well, the ultimate goal is to clone myself, right? And there's, it's getting closer and closer. There's apps like Synthesia where you could pay them like $1,000 and they will completely scan your face, your profile, everything. And then basically I could be doing a podcast like this, and it's not me, and it's just basically reading a script, or like it could be reading an output from ChatGPT. So everything you say, ChatGPT can supply a response that, your custom AI bot could then speak, So, I mean, that's where I see myself wanting to go, is to where all of the training videos, a lot of the interaction, a lot of it's done with bots.
Now I wrote down as you were speaking too, I know that there's through AI, they have programs that will code for you. So you don't even need to know code to be able to create software, right? To create software that can do things. And that's pretty interesting. I heard Naval also say, like, he said, like, knowing how to code is a superpower because you can talk to robots. Where it's like, well, now you don't even need to know how to code because of the kind of AI, it'll do that for you. You can just like kind of drag and drop and it'll do it. So it's an exciting time, brother. And I'm just super appreciative to be partnered with you, via EXP, to have you on the team. You are a wealth of knowledge and information. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today. And if you guys who are watching, if you like this episode, be sure to stick around and watch the next one.